Okay, guys, lab number 17, digestive system, or I should say digestive systems. We'll talk a little bit about different types of the digestive system. But again, remember that microvilli or villi are extremely important for what? To extend the surface area of digestive system, specifically small intestine. As a result, it has a huge surface area, therefore can break down and absorb as much nutrients as possible. All right, so let's kind of take a look on the questions. Pre-lab questions. What are the primary function of digestive system? Break down and absorb nutrients and eliminate any kind of waste. What are the two types of digestion? We talk about that a little bit. Intracellular digestion, the digestion which happens on a cellular level. The cell grabs some sort of food particles and then create a food vacuole, protists, for example, and it will break down and the nutrients will be released within the cell. Sometimes cell can share some of those nutrients within the neighboring cells. Sponges have that, okay? That's a intracellular, exclusively inside of the cell. They don't have any digestive cavity. And then there will be extracellular digestion. Extracellular digestion, there will be a special food cavity where the food goes in. The cells, the glands will release a bunch of different enzymes to break it down, the food. We're talking about polysaccharides, proteins, the fats, as well as the nucleic acids, into smaller particles, into building blocks, into amino acids, simple sugars, fatty acids, and then the nucleotides. And then it will be absorbed. So intracellular digestion and extracellular digestion. Make sure you understand the difference between two of those things. Do we have the intracellular digestion? By we talking about humans, mammals, what have you? Yes, we do. Some of our cells are still capable of doing intracellular digestion, white blood cells, sensing the bacteria, grab it and digest it. Sensing the virus, grab it, digest it. But that's not the majority of our digestion coming from. Majority of our nutrients come from the digestive tract. Give an example of animal with a gastrovascular cavity. Gastrovascular cavity is the organism with the one end or one opening for the digestive tract. Cnidarians, ctenophores, which actually have that particular traveling anus. We already talked about it, but they still have kind of gastrovascular cavity, and the flatworms. Cnidarians and flatworms for sure have a gastrovascular cavity. Ctenophores, you can make an argument they do not have. Well, they have some sort of cavity, but it's not going there on this level. We can discuss that, but yeah. So cnidarians and flatworms will be just fine. If you'll say, well, I feel like ctenophores have the gastrovascular cavity as well, I'll buy it on this level of biology. That's fine. Accessory structures, question number 4. Which accessory structure connects mouth to the stomach? Mouth connected to the stomach through the esophagus, right? And I think we have it somewhere. Here we go, esophagus. Which accessory organs produce secrete digestive enzymes into a duodenum, the first part of the digestive small intestine? And then the largest one is the duodenum, and then the very end of that known as the ileum. So we have two major ones. Would be the liver, which secretes bile, which will be stored in the gallbladder, and then of course, but it's coming from the liver, and then it will be injected in the duodenum. And then we have right here, there will be a pancreas. We just talked about that. So liver and the pancreas. If you'll say the gallbladder, I will be okay, but gallbladder do not produce, technically speaking, it's not producing the bile, it just stores. And this is what question number 6 is talking about. What is the function of the gallbladder? Gallbladder is store the bile which secreted by the liver. So it's much more accurate to say liver and the pancreas than, for example, gallbladder and the pancreas. Because yes, it's kind of secretes into duodenum, but it's not produced. Gallbladder just stores it. So liver and the pancreas would be a proper answers. So intracellular digestion, the digestion takes place inside of the cell. Therefore, animals do not have true digestive system. That's sponges. So here we have, and the sponges are on the back. So in this particular case, I don't have the, so sponges on the back, right here. That's they do not have, they have a special amoeboid cells which grab the food particles which will be brought by the water flow and so on. Now, extracellular digestion outside of the cell, where in a cavity, it could be just a cavity, it could be a tube. Gastrovascular cavity, digestive has only one opening, and this is the cnidarians and the flatworms. See, that particular opening, the pharynx, the mouth goes into a pharynx, and then that particular red stuff, digestive cavity, spreads out, feeding the organisms because they don't have the circulatory system yet. So the digestive cavity takes that particular intricate form in order to distribute the nutrients all throughout the body of the organism, plus take some of the waste out. Simple diffusion. That's one of the reasons why they stay flat, and they are relatively small, about hand size. Complete digestive tract, digestive system with two openings. Two openings, we start talking about the roundworms, the segmented worms, mollusks, arthropods, echinoderms, and then of course the chordates. So here we're looking at the chordate and of course the complete digestive system. In oral cavity, you need to identify the palate, the roof of the mouth, and it has the hard palate. This is the part where we have the bone on top of it, and then there is a soft palate on the very back of our mouth. There is not enough, well, there is no bone, so it's called the soft palate, right? So we need to find the palate all on the roof. Then the glottis. Glottis is opening right here, right here. It's kind of between the windpipe and the esophagus. So whenever the food goes in, this flap known as the epiglottis, the epiglottis closes down. Here we go. Epiglottis, hold on. Give me a moment. Here we go. Epiglottis closes down the windpipe, so the food will slide down into esophagus. So we have teeth right here, tongue. Of course, that's one. I think that's the only muscle which is attached only on one end. Most of the muscles are attached on both of the ends. So hard palate, the one where you have the bone, the soft palate where the bone is not present. Glottis, that particular opening. Epiglottis is the flap. Pharynx is the area where the windpipe and the esophagus separating. And then the esophagus is that particular tube which is connecting the mouth with the stomach. Now, oral cavity, okay, got it. Stomach, of course, esophagus is that particular tube. Here we have the stomach. And then on this particular picture, yeah, here we have the pictures. On that picture, the duodenum is kind of hard to see, but basically this is the part where the stomach attaches to the small intestine. I think I have a picture. Yeah, here we go. The picture where the transverse part of the large intestine has been moved out. So that area is the duodenum right here. That's the beginning of the small intestine. Then the majority of the large intestine, small intestine, would be known as a duodenum. And then the area where the small intestine goes and becoming a large intestine, that's known as the ileum, right? Now let's take a look what else we need to. Liver. Liver is right here, right there. And underneath of the stomach, there will be kind of a granular gland. That's the pancreas. All right. Now let's take a look. Gallbladder. Gallbladder is this particular green part kind of attached on the bottom of the liver. It stores the bile and then ejecting it into a duodenum or small beginning of the small intestine. Ileum, appendix. Now cecum. Cecum is that particular part where the, so we have a large intestine. This is where the small intestine is connected. That dead end of the large intestine is the cecum, and that particular finger-like projection is the appendix. Ascending column goes up, then the cross, transverse, and then the downward. That would be, of course, is descending column, and then the rectum, and then the anus is right here. So rectum is the last part of the digestive system before the feces will be expelled. Any questions, any problems on that? Make sure you know all of those, because on the lab practical, you coming in, there will be a picture and there will be an arrow and it will say, name the part of the digestive system, okay? Or what is the function? Make sure to read the questions, because it might point it out into a small intestine and it will say, name the function. And the person will, well, a student quite often will say, oh, that's a small intestine. So here we go, small intestine, but it's not a function. It's a name of the structure. The question might ask about function. So be careful with that, please. So now in the liver, we have 3 lobes generally. We have lots of large blood vessels coming in. Remember the filter, well, it's basically our filter. So now we have a hepatic artery. Hepatos means liver. So the bright red one typically will indicate the artery. The portal vein is the large one. The large, well, not the largest one, but this is the blue one. That's the generally indicates the vein, kind of deoxygenated blood. And then the largest blood vessel right here, known as the vena cava. Vena cava is one of the largest veins we have in our body. And then the gallbladder, again, here we're looking at the gallbladder, and that yellow stuff is nothing else but the gallbladder stones. And whenever it starts passing through the channel into the small intestine, this is where you'll have a very, well, I don't know, but well, I know, I never experienced myself, but apparently it's extremely painful experience. And then, of course, right now we have all kinds of methods. Besides the surgery, there is an ultrasound, which can break down those particular larger gallbladders into a smaller one so they can be passed easier, etc. So we have some of the issues with the large intestine, but also in the small intestine and the pancreas, etc. But of course, we will definitely have some of the issues in the large intestine. Why? Why the large intestine is so vulnerable to any kind of issues? Because it stores temporarily, of course, temporarily stores waste, and the waste will contain all kinds of toxins, or might have contained some of the toxins. And of course, according to the CDC, you should have to be about 50 or so to start with the colonoscopy. So for colon cancers or the polyps are growth in this large intestine, which might become malignant and start developing into a large, into the cancerous or become cancerous, etc. Whenever I was graduating from high school, I had the classmate, her father was in his late 30s. He was like 36 or 37. He died from the colon cancer. Another of my, this is the first time when I kind of start feeling, well, I don't feel old per se, but this is where the age kind of dawned on me that we are aging. When my classmate, and I just met with him, I went back home one of the years and we met with him, and he was always like, you know, on the healthy style. He was the guy who was running in the mornings. He was kind of health nut, so to speak. I met with him where I'm like, well, are you drinking a beer or anything like that? He's like, no, I'm staying with the tea, etc. So we had a really nice conversation, and that was like end of July. So he was looking good, everything was just fine. And then at the end of August, actually beginning of September, same year, I am getting a call from another of my classmates, and he's like, well, I have a bad news. You remember Peter? I'm like, yeah, I remember. Of course, Peter. I just talked to him like a month ago, a little bit over that month ago. He's like, he did. I'm like, what do you mean he's dead? He was always the guy who would live forever. And he's like, no, died. Pancreatic cancer. Very, very aggressive pancreatic cancer. From the moment he was, he started feeling bad, detected, so to speak, the cancer, to the grave took him less than 3 weeks. Yeah, it was. So anyway, polyps, cancers, and then the appendicitis. That particular thing, this is where some of the waste goes and starts storing in the appendicitis, and then the bacteria start growing, inflaming that particular thing, and then left it untreated, it will burst and will start spilling all that particular stuff into the body cavity. So nowadays, well, usually it basically will be removed. Nowadays, instead of a huge scar, it's like 2 punctures. There was a case in Antarctica, Russian, I think it was 1970s, Russian expedition going for, going there, and there is like 7 or 9 guys. Everything is fine. They pretty much completely isolated from the rest of the world. It's a winter time in there, so the extreme temperatures, the blizzards, etc. And one of the guys are detecting the signs of the appendicitis in him. And he is the only doctor in the station. They cannot call up and, hey, like Calvary, I need a doctor. No, nobody will come because it's completely isolated. So the guy had to perform appendectomy, removing of the appendicitis on himself. Can you imagine that? And then, of course, he had some of the help from his colleagues. He put several major mirrors, but he removed appendicitis on himself. True story. I cannot imagine what he was going through, but yeah, that's like, you know, cutting yourself open, removing them, tidying yourself up again. Yeah. Anyway, on the pig model, so here we have some, I labeled the labeled organs for you, so you will not have any major issues. Here we have the pathogenic type of the of the liver. We're talking about the gallbladder stones, all kinds cancers, etc. So here again, and I think that particular picture is showing you what issues you might have in a large intestine. But basically, let's kind of take a look on a pig model. In this particular case, here's a pig model. What you will need to be able to identify: esophagus, cannot see it. You can see the trachea, but cannot see the the esophagus itself, you can see the stomach, you can see the liver, right? Liver right there. And then we have the small intestine, and then the large intestine is kind of brownish color right there. Gallbladder, the green part right here. And that's pretty much all you can see on the pig model. And if we will have, you will see also the dissected pig, and then you can see some of those structures such as esophagus, kind of hard, but stomach, liver, small intestine overall, pancreas, gallbladder definitely should be able, and the large intestine should be able to point it out. Okay, post-review lab questions. What parts of GI tract, list the part of the GI tract in the correct order? Esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, anus. So esophagus, stomach, then we're talking about the small intestine. Duodenum is the beginning of it, then the ileum, and then the and then we're looking at the large intestine, and then part of the large rectum, and then finally anus. Done. So what are the main functions of the large intestine? Store temporarily store undigested material, reabsorption of water, and reabsorption some of the minerals, as well as the vitamins. Name the organism with a gastrovascular cavity. Cnidarians and the flatworms. What is the function of the small intestine? Two major functions. A, most of the digestion occurs in the small intestine, and most of the absorption of nutrients occurs in the small intestine. So digestion and absorption. Name two glands that release the secretion into a duodenum. That would be the liver and pancreas. What is the function of the liver? Production of bile is one of those functions, and also filter the blood from any kind of toxins and try to detoxify the blood. What is the recommended age for colorectal cancer screening? 50-55 in that particular, somewhere from 45 to 55, whichever age you decide to. Of course, if you have a history of family history of some sort of colon cancer or anything like that, you probably want to do it a little bit earlier. And right now there is actually several tests where you don't really even have to do that particular rather invasive procedure. You can start with just submitting your stool, and they checking the cells and see if there is any kind of possibility or indicators of the possible polyps or cancer. And if they have, especially if it's a positive, but there is always the false positives, then you need to go through the colonoscopy. How does food enter the stomach from the mouth? Through the esophagus. Where are the most monomers absorbed in GI tract? That would be the small intestine. Some parts of the digestive system have similar functions in different animals. Name main function of the gizzard. What the gizzard is? Gizzard is the muscular part of the, let's say, gizzards in birds. It's a muscular part of the digestive system which is breaking down the kind of masticating the food, breaking down the food in a smaller part to increase the surface area, to speed it up the overall digestion. So it will be similar to a teeth. The birds don't have the teeth, they have something else. Now, cropostomach. Well, basically, it's like a function of the stomach. So to digest or start the digestion, and also highly acidic environment. And then the intestine, that would be a absorption, well, digestion and absorption. How does pH changes in mammalian digestive system? Mouth is slightly basic pH. stomach would be a highly acidic pH, and then intestines would be basic pH. So it goes basic, acidic, basic. And guess what? We are done for today. Like I told you, it's very easy, straightforward. On Monday, yesterday, I went to the lab and kind of looked the actual lab, and it's only two tables. That was it. So anyway,